Good morning, and welcome to Redeemer Lutheran Church in Columbia, South Carolina, where we're part of the ELCA. I'm Pastor Gary Lodeholt. Happy New Year's. The saying used to be, behind every good man is a woman, pointing out the often supportive, behind-the-scenes roles women can play. There's a more modern take on that line, however, that may be even more true. Behind every good man is a woman rolling her eyes. That's probably a lot truer than most of us men would care to admit. This week we are wrapping up our year-long series of each month considering the faithful lives of men and women the church remembers and commemorates. And so this week we are looking at folks the church remembers in December. The point of remembering them is so that their lives of faith can inspire our own. Today we want to explore the life of the woman behind the man, Katherine von Bora, who was the wife of Martin Luther. There's an option on Facebook to describe your relationship status, and sometimes people put, "It's complicated." That would be a pretty good description of the relationship between Martin and Katie, as he ended up calling her, at least in the beginning. But let's start well before that. As you might be aware, they didn't keep records of things back then the way we do now, so it's unclear exactly who Katie's parents were or where she was born in 1499. When she was 5, her father sent her to a convent to be educated, and then when she was 9, she was moved to a different convent where her aunt was a nun. After years of being a nun, von Bora became interested in the growing Protestant reform movement and grew dissatisfied with cloistered life. Conspiring with several other sisters, she contacted Luther and begged for his assistance. In 1523, Luther sent a merchant who regularly delivered barrels of herring to the convent with a wagon of fish, and after unloading the fish, smuggled 12 nuns out in empty fish barrels. At first, Luther asked their families to take them in, but they all refused, probably because to harbor an escaped nun like this violated church laws, and the families could be excommunicated. So there Luther was, with 12 nuns on his hands, without a clue as to what to do with them. Within 2 years, Luther was able to arrange marriages or find employment for all of the escaped nuns, except Katie. Oh, she had a couple of suitors, but neither of the relationships resulted in a marriage. For her part, Katie was adamant that she would only marry Luther or one other gentleman. For his part, Luther was unsure whether or not he should get married. Remember that before him, any priest was a Roman Catholic priest, and even today they are not allowed to marry. If Luther married, what would that say to the society that expected priests to be celibate? How might his marriage affect public opinion of the reforms he was trying to bring about? With great romance, and I'm being sarcastic here, Luther eventually decided that his marriage would please his father, rile the Pope, cause the angels to laugh, and the devils to weep. I'm sure that's exactly the kind of proposal a girl dreams of. Not. Katie found out quickly what she was in for. At 11 p.m. on their wedding night, an enemy of Luther was being chased by a mob and came to Luther for safety and sanctuary. Luther opened the door and let him in. On their wedding night. The thing is, while we might suppose that Martin and Katie weren't terribly in love at the beginning of their marriage, it grew into a powerful bond, marked by mutual support and love. When they married, Katie was 26 and Luther was 41. Martin continued his work to spread his ideas and reforms, while Katie immediately took on the task of managing their home's holdings. She bred and sold cattle and ran a brewery to provide for their family, the numerous students who boarded with them, and her husband's visitors. In times of epidemics, she operated a hospital with nurses working alongside them. Luther called her the boss of Zulsdorf, after the farm they owned, and the Morning Star of Wittenberg for her habit of rising at 4 a.m. Based on Luther's descriptions, his wife, whom he nicknamed Herr Katie, exerted much control over his life. She might even have influenced his decisions to a degree. Luther said that his wife convinced him of whatever she pleased and explicitly afforded her complete control over the household. Together they had 6 children, 3 boys and 3 girls, and took in 4 more orphaned children. She depended on Luther for financial support, although her management of the estate increased its value. The marriage had powerful significance for gender roles and views on marriage, but also provided a target for Luther's enemies. After Martin died, life was a struggle financially for Katie. Without his salary as professor and pastor, there simply wasn't enough income from the farm to live on. She refused to sell the homestead, even though Luther had advised her before he died to do so. Harvest failures and plagues forced her to move several times, and finally she died at the age of 53. Because of her need to move several times, she and Martin are buried about 30 miles apart. On her deathbed, she was reported to have said, "I will stick to Christ like a burr to a topcoat." That should be the aspiration and commitment for us all. Thanks for watching, and remember to let this day belong to God.